Okay, so good afternoon to everyone. So let's begin today's lecture. In the last lecture, we introduced the first instance of a machine, right, which is basically an abstraction of a real-world computing system. So we saw this abstraction or this model called deterministic finite automaton. So this deterministic finite automaton is a model of a finite memory machine, which means that it has a finite number of states, right, which the machine could be in, right, which this DFA could be in. And then what it does, right, is that it simply uh, responds to inputs, right? So it responds to symbols of the input alphabet. Right? So whenever it sees a particular symbol of the input alphabet, then it's going to change its state, right? So this is denoted by transition, right? So states and transitions are the two main components of a DFA, right? It has a finite number of states, uh, and the input alphabet is also finite, right? And for every state and for every input alphabet, uh, for every symbol of the input alphabet, we define this transition function, which we denoted by delta, right? And it also has a special, so the DFA also has a special start state, and it has a bunch of final states, right? Uh, we also defined this notion of an extended delta, right? So this delta is the transition function of the DFA, right? So this delta only operates on a single symbol of the input alphabet. But if you want to consider the effect of an entire string, which is a sequence of symbols from the input alphabet, then for that purpose, we define this extended delta, which is this delta hat. Right? So this delta hat uh, basically scans the string, right, from left to right, uh, and then performs the transitions using the delta function. Uh, Okay, so I have a question that can alphabet in general be of infinite length? Okay, so no, that's not the case as well, right? So that's what we assumed at the very beginning, right? That we will always consider finite alphabet, right? So alphabet which consists of a finite number of elements. Okay. Yeah. Uh, okay. So that's where. So this is the last slide on which we finished in the last lecture, right? Where we had defined this delta hat formally, right, by using an inductive definition. And then we just apply this inductive definition on an example state and an example string. Uh, so are there any more questions from the last lecture? Okay. So in that case, let me ask a few questions, right? Okay, so there's a question that what will be delta QE? Okay. So can anyone answer that question, right? So is this delta Q E, by E I assume epsilon, right? So is delta Q comma epsilon, right? What will be delta Q comma epsilon? Okay. Uh, okay, I have a number of responses. Right? So some of you are saying it's Q, some of you are saying it's not meaningful or it's not defined. Yeah. So that's the correct answer. Yeah. So it's undefined, right? So because if you look at the signature of this delta, so uh, it's here. So if you look at the signature of the transition function, then it's a function from Q cross sigma to Q. Now the sigma is the input alphabet. Right? Epsilon is a string. Right? It's not part of the input alphabet. So that's why delta is not defined on epsilon. Uh, on the other hand, delta hat is defined on epsilon because delta hat is a function on states and strings. Okay? Yeah, so this delta bar, right? So I am assuming by delta bar you mean delta hat. Right? So yes, that is we defined this inductively, right? Here, right, where so this part of the inductive definition, right? The delta hat of q comma epsilon is q. So delta is not defined for epsilon because epsilon is a string. It's not a symbol. Right? Delta is only defined for symbols, but delta hat is defined for any arbitrary string. It's also defined for the empty string. So it's defined simply as q. Right? Any more questions? So this sort of illustrates the point that I want to make, right? That why are we concerned with this formal definitions, right? So these formal definitions are there exactly for resolving these type of queries, right? So someone would ask that, okay, why is delta not defined on epsilon? Right? So the reason is that well, there is a function, delta is a function, and its domain is q cross sigma, and since epsilon is not a part of sigma, therefore it's not defined on sigma. Okay. So here's another question which says, Samuel Moses has asked that will every state have a transition for all alphabet, right? So again, right, so this is the type of question that would be answered by the formal definition, right? So what does the formal definition say? So a transition function delta, right? It's a function. So what is the characteristic of a function? Uh, so the function is defined for all of its arguments. So this means that it's basically going to be, so this means that since its domain, right, is q cross sigma, for every state and for every symbol of the input alphabet, this transition is going to be defined. Okay. Yeah. And that's the other property that it's a fixed output, right? So you always associate some input, right? So argument with a fixed value, right? So in this case, you associate every q and every symbol a with a fixed state, right? With a fixed state to which you're going to transition, right? When you see that particular symbol. Okay? So okay, so what about this delta hat? Right? So we haven't formally defined the signature for delta hat, right? So what is the signature for delta hat? Is it a function, first of all? So we know that this delta hat seems to be defined for every state and every string. Uh, but is it a function? Okay, so it is a function, and yes, okay. And yours and several of you are saying that its signature is q cross sigma star to q, right? Yeah, that's correct. So uh, so this delta hat is also a function, which means that it is defined for every state and every string. Right? So the set of all strings is sigma star, right? And therefore the domain is q cross sigma star, and it also associates a unique state to every q and every string w. So that follows from the definition of delta itself, right? Because delta hat is repeatedly applying delta. Right, on all the elements of the string. Right? So that's why you get so that's why this delta hat is also a function. Okay, so here are some more questions, right? So we know that this is the formal representation of a DFA, right? Consists of q, sigma, delta, s, and f. Okay? So here's the first question. Right? So can M have multiple start states? Okay. So Vineet is saying no. Does everyone agree with him? Can there be multiple start states? Okay, yeah. So several of you are saying no, and that's correct, right? So if you look at the definition, right, of M, this S, right, is defined as S belongs to Q. So this is just a single element. Right? So in this case, so in the case of a DFA, S is a single element of Q, and therefore M cannot have multiple start states, right? So in fact, it's guaranteed to have a single start state, right? So it will have exactly one start state. So what about F? Okay. So can M have zero final states? So the final states are defined by F. Okay, so Vikram is saying yes. Is that correct? Okay, I see. So several of you are saying that yes, it can have zero final states, and okay, yeah. So that's again clear from the definition of the machine itself, right? From the definition of a DFA, right? So this we define this F to be a subset of Q, right? But so the null set is also a subset of Q, which means that F can be the null set. So so the machine can have 0 final states, right? In fact, all of the states can also be final states, right? So any subset of Q could be so any subset of Q could be the set of final states of M. And this is the question that one of you already asked, right? And so for any state Q belongs to Q and any symbol A belongs to sigma, there is exactly one transition of M, right? So this is because this delta is actually a function. So therefore, it only associates a single state with every pair Q comma A. So therefore, there's exactly one transition. Okay. So these are the kind of questions, right, that are sort of clarified, right, by the formal definition, right? And this is why the formal definition is important, right? Because it resolves any ambiguities, right? And it also provides a very clear picture of what is going on. All right, so let's move forward. Okay, so we briefly saw this notion of accepted and rejected strings in the last lecture. So we looked at it informally, but let's now formally define what is an accepted, when is a string accepted and when is a string rejected by the DFA. So if you have some string X which belongs to sigma star, then this string is accepted by the DFA if this delta hat of S comma X belongs to F. So let's look at this carefully, right? So it's saying that you apply this extended delta function, which is delta hat, beginning from the start state of the DFA, and you process the entire string beginning from the start state. And then if you end up in a final state, in any final state, then the string could be accepted. Similarly, the string X is rejected by the DFA if delta hat of S comma X does not belong to F. So this means that if you process the string X from the start state, and if you do not end up in any of the final states, right, then the string would be rejected by the DFA. So this is a very simple definition for accepted and rejected strings. And then we can now define the language of a DFA. So this is what we ultimately want to do, right? So we want to solve the language inclusion problem using machines, right? So we want to find out what are the kind of languages that we can identify using just finite memory, right? Or using just this model of a machine, which is a finite memory machine, right? So we'll see different models of machines, right? All of these models are going to define languages. And we will use, so if M is an automaton, then we'll use this language L of M for its language. Okay? So the notation L of M denotes the language of the DFA M, right? Or in general for any automaton M. And in particular for a DFA M, L of M is simply the set of strings that are accepted by M. So which means that you consider all possible strings, right, from sigma star, and you consider all of those strings which when you operate the machine, right, the DFA on that string from the start state, if it leads you to any of the final states, then that string would be accepted and that would be part of its language. On the other hand, if the string is rejected by the DFA, then it will not be part of its language. So that's the definition of the language of a DFA. So it's a set of strings that are accepted by the DFA, which means that they lead you to the start, they lead the machine, right, or they lead the DFA from the start state, any of the final states. So let's look at this particular DFA, which we also saw in the last class. Right? So in particular, right? So let's look at the string 101. So let's say that we want to find out whether or not the string is in the language of the DFA or not. Okay. So in order to do that, we have to compute the extended transition function, right, which is this delta hat beginning from the start state, which is Q1. So we want to compute delta hat of Q1 101. Right? So we saw how to do this formally, right, using the formal definition. But let's also now do this using the graph notation, right, or the graph representation of the DFA. So in particular, so we'll start at Q1, okay, and we will look at the first, the leftmost symbol, right, in the string, which is 1. Okay. So we'll start with Q1. We look at we see that the next symbol is 1. So we're going to find delta of Q1, 1, which in this case is Q2. Right? So therefore, we'll follow this arc that's labeled 1, right, from Q1 to Q2. Okay. So meanwhile, so there's a question from Vedant that can the language be empty? And if yes, why is that allowed? Meanwhile, so there's a question from Vedant that can the language be empty? And if yes, why is that allowed? Yeah, I mean, so as one of the examples, right, is where if there are no final states, then the language would be empty. And in general, I mean, it's possible that the language could be empty. So we will see, right, why is it useful to even define empty languages, or why is it useful to consider automaton which define empty languages? Uh, okay, a language will always have the empty string. Okay, that's an interesting question. So that's asked by Sanchit, right? So uh, would anyone like to answer that question? Right? So will a language always have an empty string? Okay. Okay, I see no, yes, and various other remarks, right? So uh, not if m, so okay, not if m is empty, and if start state is not a final state. Okay, yeah, okay, that's correct, right? So so if the start state, right, is not a final state, then epsilon won't belong to the language, right? So remember that if for epsilon to belong to the language, it must so when you operate epsilon on the machine, right, which means that if you process epsilon from the start state, you must end up in a final state. Okay. Now, by definition, right, delta hat of some any state comma epsilon is that state itself. Right? So which means that if the start state is not a final state, then epsilon won't belong to the language. But if the start state is a final state, then epsilon will belong to the language. So yeah. But so let's complete this example. Let's see what the machine does when you analyze or when you process the string 101 right on this machine. Okay. So we first follow since Q1 is the start state, we first follow the label from the arc labeled 1 right from Q1. So I'll end up in state Q2. Uh, so now from the state Q2, I'm then going to follow the arc labeled 0, right? Because 0 is the next symbol that I'm going to process, and I'm in state Q2. Okay? So then, so which means that I'm going to follow the arc labeled Q2, sorry, the arc labeled 0 from Q2. And so this brings me back to Q1. Okay? So now from Q1, I again will follow the arc labeled 1 from Q1, right? Which in this case again brings me to Q2. Okay. So which means so now there are no more symbols from the string to process. I have processed the entire string, and I have ended up in the state Q2. So then I find out whether or not, or then I see whether or not this Q2 is a final state or not. So in this case, Q2 is a final state because it's represented by double circles. So which means that when I process this entire string, right, from the start state Q1, I ended up in Q2, which is a final state, and therefore the string is accepted by the language. Right? So 101 is accepted by this language, is accepted by this DFA rather, and therefore it is in the language of the DFA. And so you can do this exercise for some more strings, right, in order to clarify, right, how exactly the DFA operates on the string. And we have seen this as well, right, that in fact you can, if you try this out on more examples, right, then you will be able to see that this DFA, right, does not accept strings that have consecutive ones. So it will accept all the strings that do not have consecutive ones. Okay, I have another question from Vineet, which is that can there be a state which is not the output of transition of any queue? Okay. So again, right, so would someone like to answer that question? So consider the definition of a DFA, right? So all these questions can be answered by considering the formal definition of the DFA. Okay. Okay, I see that. Yes, yes. So that's correct, right? So it is possible that there could be some state Q, right, small q and capital Q, which is not the target of any transition, right? It's perfectly possible, right? But you're right that you still need to define all possible transitions out of such a state as well. Uh, because the formal definition of this delta, right, is basically a function from Q cross sigma to Q. Right? So Q is the codomain. It's not necessarily the range, right? So which means that the range itself could be a subset of Q, but that's fine. So it's still a function. Okay. Any more questions? Okay. Okay, so let's look at a few more examples of DFAs, right, and try to figure out the languages that they accept. Okay. So here is another example of a DFA. Uh, so so take a look at it, right, uh, and I want you to tell me what is the language that's accepted by this DFA. Okay. So please raise your hand, right, if you know the answer. Don't write the answer in the chat. Okay, we'll give some more time. So I want you to tell me that what's the language that's accepted by this DFA. Right? So not just some example strings, but the way that we defined the language for the last example, right? Where we said that, okay, this DFA does not accept, rather this accepts strings which do not have consecutive ones, right? So is there some characterization, some similar characterization of the strings that will be accepted by this DFA? Okay, so I see that a number of you have raised your hands. So I'm going to ask one of you who was not answered before. Okay, uh, let's see. So maybe Akiraju Tarani Gopal. Right? So can you tell me what's the answer? I hope I have pronounced your name correctly. Okay. So Akiraju is saying ending with a one. Yeah. So that's correct, right? So this string, this DFA is going to accept all those strings that end in one, right? So in particular, it's not going to accept the empty string, uh, and it's also not going to accept strings which do not end in one. It's just going to accept strings which end in one. Okay. And the way to reason about this, right, is that you can look at some examples, right? So, for example, so if a string contains only zeros, then you will forever remain in state Q1, right, which is the start state, but it's not the final state. On the other hand, if as soon as it sees a one, right, it's going to transition to the state Q2, which is a final state. But then when it sees a zero, it goes back to Q1, right? So this means that if if the last symbol in the string is not one, right? If it is zero, then it must be in the state Q1. Therefore, this string only accepts this DFA only accepts strings which end in one. Okay. Okay. Good. So let's do this exercise one more time. Okay. So this is a very simple. This is another DFA, right? It's just a simple modification of the first one. Okay. Uh, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat the same exercise, right? So those of you who know the answer to this question, right? So what is the language that's accepted by this DFA? Please raise your hand. Think for a moment, right? think very carefully. Okay, so let me again ask one of you. So, what about so Kostab Miklani? So, can you tell me what's the answer? Okay, so Kostab has said ending with a zero. Okay, is that correct? Yeah, yeah, ending with a zero and epsilon. Yeah, that's correct, right? Yeah. So this so this DFA accepts strings which end with zero. At the same time, it also accepts strings. It also accepts empty string, right? So you can write this more succinctly as saying that this DFA accepts all those strings which do not end in one. So if W does not end in one, then it's going to accept that, right? So since the epsilon string also does not end in one, so it's also going to accept that, and it's also going to accept all those strings which end in zero. Yeah. Okay. Good. So let's do one more example. Okay, I think I have a couple more, but okay, let's do this one. Okay. So what's the language that's accepted by this DFA? I'm going to lower everyone. And then, yeah, you can raise your hand. Okay, so I see that a number of you have raised your hand. So uh, okay, so let me call on KR Hariharan. So can you please answer?
Any string that
Okay, any string that contains one. Okay, yeah, so that's correct, right? So as long as it contains at least one, right, that string is going to be accepted. Right? So it doesn't matter where that one is. So uh, all those strings which contain at least one, they will be accepted by this language, right? And you can see that it begins with the start state Q1, right? And as soon as you see a one anywhere, it's going to move to the final state Q2, and that's where it's going to remain for all other uh, for all other symbols, right? So that's correct. So I think I have one more example. Okay, so this is a slightly more complicated example. So take a minute to think about this, and what's the language that's accepted by this DFA? Okay, so a number of you have raised your hand. So let me call on one of you. So What about Kovuri Shravan Kumar? Uh, can you answer? Okay, Kovuri, are you there? Kovuri Shravan Kumar? Kovuri Shravan Kumar, you can just type yes or no if you can just hear me. Just to let us know that you are actually on time. Okay, not getting a response from Kovuri Shravan Kumar. So, okay, so let me ask someone else, right? So, what about Vedant Ashish Sahu? Okay. So Vedant Ashish Sahu has said ending in 00 or 11 or just a 0 or just a 1. Ending in 00 or 11 or just a 0 or just a 1. Okay. Is that correct? Okay. So, okay, I see that the number of you have said no and the number of you also given the answer. So, okay, so that's, yeah, so the answer that many of you have given is correct, right? So it's basically a string which has the same first and last symbol. So it begins and ends with the same symbol. Okay. So that's the language that's accepted by this DFA, right? So it accepts all those strings which start and end with the same symbol. Okay. So let's why is that the case, right? So if you look at this, yeah, if you look at this carefully, right? So we begin with state Q1, right? So let's say you see a 0, then you're going to end up in the state Q2. Okay, so that's an that's a final state. But so then what do you do after that? So so whenever you see a 1, so I think there's a slight typo here, so it should be Q3, right? But whenever you see a 1, you go to another state, okay? And then when you see a 0, you go back to state Q2. Right? So this means that so you have sort of remembered, right? That okay, from the start state Q1, right? The very first symbol that I saw was 0, okay, and then you're whenever you see a 1, you're going to move to a non-final state. Okay, whenever you see a 0, you're going to move to a final state, right? Which means that when you end a string, okay, if you are in a final state, then the last symbol that you saw must have been 0. So that means that it's the same as the start symbol, right? And the same thing goes for the other direction as well, right? So beginning from the start state, if the very first symbol of the string that you process, right, is 1, then you're going to remember that, right, and you're going to move to this state, right, this different state, okay, and then you do the same thing, right? So whenever you see a 0, you move to a non-final state. Whenever you see a 1, you move to a final state. Okay, which means that when you finish processing the entire string, and if you were in a final state, then you must have seen the last symbol that you must have seen should be 1, right? Which is the same as the first symbol. Okay? So that's why this DFA is accepting all those strings or all those words which start and end with the same symbol. So are there any questions regarding these examples? So the way to sort of answer this type of questions, right, is to look at some sample strings, right, and try to generalize from them. Okay? But when you generalize from them, also take into account the structure of the DFA itself, right, and which are the kind of strings, right, which are the most. So whenever you generalize, right, you should try to be as general as possible, right, in the sense that what your generalization should be as broad as possible. Okay? Uh, and so if with some practice, right, I think everyone should be able to get a hang, right, of how to find out what is the language that's accepted by DFA. Okay, so since there are no more questions, right, let's move forward. Okay, so well, we have seen various examples, right, of of us saying that, okay, here is the language of the DFA, and we have characterized this language of the DFA by some property, right? So like all the strings which contain one, right, or all the strings which do not contain one, or all the strings which start and end with the same symbol, and so on. Right? But we need to formally prove this, right? So we need to prove that that this is exactly the language of the DFA, right? So in order to formally prove this, right? So we look at one example of how do we formally prove that that a language of the DFA can be characterized in with a specific property. Okay, so this is a proof of set equivalence, right? So here we have two sets, right? So we have on one hand we have the language that's accepted by the DFA, and on the other hand we have these strings, right, which are characterized by some property. This property, we have seen various examples of this property, right? So it does not contain consecutive ones, right? It contains at least one, and so on. And we need to show that both of these sets are actually equal. So the way to prove both sets are equal is to basically show that both of them are subsets of each other. So in this, so this is just what I was saying, right? So we need to prove that two descriptions of sets are in fact the same set. So as we have seen in various examples, right? So one set is the language of this DFA, right? Or the set of all strings that are accepted by this DFA, and the other is some characterization, right? Some property. Right? So in this case, it is the set of strings of zeros and ones with no consecutive ones. So this is the very first example of a DFA that we saw. Okay. So in order to prove that S is equal to T, so we have given two sets. We want to prove that they're equal. We need to prove two parts, right? We need to prove that S should be a subset of T and that T should be a subset of S. Okay. So in this case, so what this means, right, is that this is a set of strings, right? So we take any arbitrary string W, and we have to show that if this W is in S, then the W is in T. Right? If we can show that, then we have proved that S is a subset of T. Similarly, to prove the other direction, the T is a subset of S, we take any arbitrary string and we say that, okay, if this W is a member of T, right? If this W is in T, then this W is also in S. So that would mean that T is a subset of S. So we need to prove both of these directions in order to show that S is equal to T. Okay. So let's do this for one example. Okay. So as an example, we will take the very first DFA that we saw, right? And so we take the language of that DFA as our set S, right? And the set T to be no consecutive ones. Right? And we'll try to show that S is equal to T. Okay, so here is a short sort of miniaturized version of the DFA, right? This is the very first DFA that we saw, and we want to show that the language that this DFA accepts is the set of all strings which do not contain consecutive ones, right? So as you can see, right, if the string does contain consecutive ones, then it goes to the state Q3, which is a sort of non-final state where you will always remain. Right? So just by looking at the DFA, it seems obvious, right, that it should be the case that that this DFA only recognizes strings which do not end or which do not contain consecutive ones. Okay? But formally proving this is slightly more involved, right? So let's go through all the steps if you want to show that these two sets are equal, right? So So in the first part, we show that S is a subset of T, right? So S is the language that's accepted by this DFA, and T is the set of all strings which do not contain consecutive ones. Right? So in order to show that S is a subset of T, we have to show that if you take some arbitrary word W, right? So if this W is accepted by the DFA, right, then this W will not contain consecutive ones. Okay? So yeah, that's what we have to show, right? So we have to show that if W is accepted, then W has no consecutive ones. Okay? And we will prove this by induction on the length of W. Okay, so this is the standard technique, right? Which we'll use to prove any such statement, right? Involving strings and the languages. Okay. So let's first expand the inductive hypothesis, right? So you can't directly prove if you just take this as an inductive hypothesis, then you won't actually go anywhere, right? So we need to expand the inductive hypothesis, right? So in particular, right, so we need to say that okay, if W is accepted by the DFA, what is it that I can say about that particular word, okay, or about that particular string? Okay, so let's do that. So notice that if W is accepted by the DFA, right, this means that if you process the string W, right, then you end up either in state Q1 or in state Q2. Right? So that's all that you know, right? So delta hat, which is this extended delta hat of Q1 comma W is going to be either Q1 or it's going to be Q2, right? If W is accepted by the DFA. So let's try to differentiate, right, between Q1 and Q2. So in particular, what can we say if delta hat of Q1 comma W is equal to Q1, and what can we say about W if delta hat of Q1 comma W is equal to Q2? Right? So yeah, so that's what we will try to do. So this is the characterization that we have done, right? So we're saying that okay, if delta hat of Q1 comma W is equal to Q1, okay, then W has some property, right? So the property that W has is that it does not have consecutive ones. That's there, and it also does not end in one. Okay? And if delta hat of Q1 comma W is equal to Q2, then we can say that this W has no consecutive ones, and it's going to end in a one. Right? So the very last symbol of W must be equal to one. Okay, so so here we have sort of strengthened our inductive hypothesis, right? So notice that this thing that we're trying to prove, right? It basically implies so if W if W is accepted by the DFA, right? Then delta hat of Q1 comma W is either Q1 or Q2, right? And this means that and if you combine that with these two properties, right, that will show, then that would imply that W does not contain consecutive ones, right? Because W does not contain consecutive ones is part of both of these properties. Right? Okay, so that's the step that we. So this is the thing that we are trying to prove, right? So we are trying to show that okay, if delta hat of Q1 comma W is equal to Q1, then something else, then something holds. If delta hat of Q1 comma W is equal to Q2, then something holds. Okay, and if we can prove this one, then we have shown that if W is accepted by the DFA, then it is not going to have consecutive ones. Okay. So I hope that the proof up to this part is at least clear. Right? So this is the statement that we're trying to show. Okay. So if there are any questions, then I can explain the whole thing again. So in order to show that if delta hat of Q1 comma W, right, is equal to Q1 or Q2, then W does not have consecutive ones. We have just broken down the two things. Right? So okay, if delta hat of Q1 comma W is equal to Q1, then W has no consecutive ones, and more we can say something more about W, right, that it does not end in one. And if delta hat of Q1 comma W is equal to Q2, then again W has no consecutive ones, but there's something more that we can say, which is that it ends in a single one. Okay, so let's try to prove that that this is actually the case, and we'll do this by using induction on the length of W. Okay. So the base case is when the length of W is 0, right, which means that W is the empty string. Okay. So does this hold, right, for W if it is the empty string? Can someone answer that? Does it hold, and why does it hold? Okay, so I have a question that one other way to go is to show that Q3 is reached if and only if there are two consecutive ones and that there is no escape from Q3. Yeah, I mean, that's what we are trying to show, right? Actually, that I mean, I think so. You're talking about the contrapositive, right? So you're saying that okay, uh, if there are two consecutive ones, then Q3 is reached, which means that. Yeah, but then you have to show this extra property, right? That there is no escape from Q3. So, let's try to follow along this proof, right? There are different ways of doing proving the same thing, but let's try to prove it directly. So the question that I'm asking is that let's say that I want to prove these two properties, 1 and 2. Right? I want to show that both of them hold. Uh, do they hold for strings of length 0? And why do they hold? Okay, so what's the reason? Okay, see, I mean, maybe maybe some of you can also unmute yourself, right, and just speak, because it's hard to understand. Vineet, can you do that?
First case, like delta hat of q1 comma e will be q1, which means that the hypothesis of the if then statement is true, and so is the conclusion
Okay.
that w has no consecutive ones and it
Yeah.
does not end in one.
Yeah.
But for the second statement, the
Mm-hmm.
hypothesis itself is false, so we
Mm-hmm.
don't need to check whether the conclusion is true or false, and the
Yeah.
statement is true.
Yeah. Yeah, that's correct, right? So if you apply this delta hat of q1 comma w, right? So what w is equal to epsilon. So let's say so delta hat of q1 comma epsilon we know is equal to q1. That's by definition. And so then it's clear that epsilon definitely has no consecutive ones. In fact, it's empty, and it also does not end in one. And then since delta hat of q1 comma epsilon is equal to q1, which is not equal to q2, right? So therefore the antecedent itself, right, uh, is false, right? And therefore the consequent we don't need to check whether or not the consequent is true or false. Okay? So one holds because epsilon has no ones at all, right? So even though delta hat of q1 comma epsilon is actually equal to q1, epsilon is empty, right? So therefore it does not have consecutive ones and it does not end in one. And 2 holds vacuously, right? Because so yeah, delta of for any a comma epsilon is not b. So here delta of delta hat rather of q1 comma epsilon is not equal to q2. Right? Uh, uh, Delta hat of q1 comma epsilon is actually equal to q1 itself, right? And therefore it holds vacuously. Okay? So this takes care of the base case. Right? So let's now do the inductive step as well. Okay? So for the inductive step, we assume these two properties hold for strings that are shorter than W, right? Where this length of W is at least 1. So we already proved it for length of W equal to 0. So this W is some string, right? And whose length is at least 1, and we assume by inductive hypothesis that both of these properties hold for all strings that are shorter than W. Okay? So in particular, right, since W is not empty, right, so its length is at least 1, we can write W as x comma a, rather as xa, where this a is the last symbol of W and x is the string that precedes it, right? So we are trying to use the inductive hypothesis, right? So we want to use this inductive hypothesis on the prefix, right, of W. Right? So in particular, we will separate out the very last symbol of W, okay, which is this A, and the entire prefix before that, right? We are using this notation X for it. Right? And by the inductive hypothesis, we know that these two properties 1 and 2 hold for the string X. We want to show that they hold for the string W as well. Okay? So inductive hypothesis is true for X. Okay. So now we need to prove that both of these properties hold for W as well, right? Where W is equal to XA. Okay. So let's see what these properties are, right? So in order to prove this property number one for W, right? So this property number one says that if delta hat of Q1 comma W is equal to Q1, then W has no consecutive ones, right? And it does not end in one as well. Okay. So this is the property one that we're trying to show. Okay. And we know that W is equal to X comma A. So what is it that we can sort of reduce, right? So first of all, we know that delta hat of Q1 comma W is equal to Q1. Okay. And I also know that W is equal to X comma A. So can I say something about W is equal to XA? And so can I say something about the symbol A? So look at the incoming edges, right, to the state Q1. So both the incoming edges to the state Q1 are labeled with 0, which means that if you finally end up in the state Q1, that after processing the entire string, right, then the very last symbol must definitely be equal to 0. Right? So it cannot end in 1. So because of the fact that both of the incoming edges to Q1 are 0, you can say that W is this symbol A is going to be equal to 0 as well, and therefore the string W is not going to end in 1. And furthermore, since W is equal to X comma A, and the inductive hypothesis holds for X, right? So X does not have consecutive ones, right? And A itself is just 0. So clearly, then W also does not have consecutive ones. Okay. So yeah, so that's why the property number one holds for W. And here's the explanation for it, right? So since delta hat of Q1 comma W is equal to Q1, therefore delta hat of Q1 comma X must be Q1 or Q2, right? So these are the only two states from which you have an incoming edge to Q1, okay? And this A must also be equal to 0 because both of these incoming edges to Q1 are labeled with 0. Uh, and we know that X does not have consecutive ones, right? And therefore W has no consecutive ones, and it does not end in 1 as well. Okay. Uh, so let's quickly do this property number 2 as well. Right? So in order to prove this property number 2, we need to show that if delta hat of Q1 comma W is equal to Q2, then W has no consecutive ones, and it ends in 1 as well. So again, right, how would we show this, right? Since we know that delta hat of Q1 comma W is equal to Q2, so we are ending up in the state Q2. Okay, so let's look at the incoming edges to Q2. So there is only one incoming edge, right, to Q2, right, which is labeled with 1. Right? So which means that W is definitely going to end in 1, right? So A is definitely going to be equal to 1. Moreover, this incoming edge, right, is coming from Q1, right? And by inductive hypothesis, I know that that okay, by processing the string X, I'm going to end up in Q1, right? And I know that by the inductive hypothesis that any such string does not have consecutive ones, and it's also not going to end in 1, right? So it's going to end in 0. So that's why since X itself is going to end in 0 and A is 1, therefore you still don't have consecutive. So this is a bit complicated. Right? So we'll go through this again in the next lecture as well. But I encourage everyone to go through this on their own as well. Right? But the argument is very clear if you just look at the diagram and follow through, right, on using the inductive hypothesis and the facts that are known. Okay? So since delta hat of Q1 comma W is equal to Q2, therefore we know that delta hat of Q1 comma X must be Q1. Therefore A must be 1. And then we use the inductive hypothesis to say that X has no consecutive ones and it does not end in 1. Right? And therefore W itself has no consecutive ones and it does not, and it will end in 1 as well. Okay. So this sort of completes one direction of the proof. Right? So we have proved that if W has no consecutive ones, then it's basically going to be accepted. Or rather, we have proved the other direction. So we have proved that if W is actually accepted by the DFA, then it is not going to have consecutive ones. Okay. So we'll finish the rest of the proof in the next lecture. Yeah. So thank you, everyone.